because my life's been a
You've
disaster.
been always like that.
Yeah.
I mean, helping people.
Yeah, but it never occurred to me before. It was all
Okay.
music.
Yeah.
And I played benefits and stuff to help cure cancer and raise money. But it was always using my music to do that,
Right.
as musicians often do. They
Of course.
lend their talents to a cause,
Yeah.
and I did a lot of that. And I would talk to troubled teens and play music for them to try to keep them out of the drugs that I was into and teach them some lessons. So I did stuff like that.
Okay.
But as far as being in a disaster zone, and I never in my life thought
Right.
that I would do that. But having had that experience at 9/11, it changed me. It did a couple things. Number one, it made me realize that I could do this and that I was good at it, which I had no even aptitude or thought that I would do. The other thing it did was make me feel that my pursuit of fame and fortune and playing in front of thousands of people and getting rich and having, making records and having thousands of people scream and all that and all the drugs you wanted or whatever was really kind of empty and shallow for me in comparison
To what you were getting
to
at.
what I just had done.
Right.
So I got myself out of the music business, and I still played here and there, but really I concentrated on going to disaster zones.
Okay.
I went to Central America, Belize. I went to a couple hurricanes and things, and in America. And in 2004, at the end of 2004, the Boxing Day tsunami,
Right.
which hit all of
It came
Sri Lanka and
Sri Lanka, yeah.
Indonesia. And
Right.
so I called up this group that was going, and I got in touch with them, and Global Crossroads was the name of that organization. And I saw that they were doing a mission over to Indonesia. I called them up, and they said, well, we're actually doing two missions. We're going to Indonesia, and we're also going to Sri Lanka.
Okay.
And I sent in my resume that I'd been to Ground Zero and 9/11 and all I had done.
Okay.
And that this is what I've done. So they took me into their Sri Lanka team.
Oh.
So I went to Sri Lanka, was
Okay.
there for about a month,
Okay.
and helped build houses, helped deliver supplies, helped with a medical center, helped a couple families get some resources
Okay.
so that they could survive because their father had died in the tsunami. This kind
And it
of
was
stuff.
pretty bad there, right?
It was 35,000 people were
Yeah,
killed by the tsunami there.
course.
Not as bad as what it was in Indonesia, but it was
Yeah.
one of the, I think, the second or third hardest hit country.
Okay.
So from that experience, I came back
US.
to US.
Right.
And after having that experience, I just wanted to do more help. And I was ready to do more. And it was actually Sid Bernstein who helped me buy my ticket to Sri Lanka because I had no money to buy an
Oh,
airline ticket.
okay.
Right. So, he continued to help. But when I got back from this one disaster, then very shortly after, Hurricane Katrina happened.
Right.
So I took a truck full of Zodiac special operations boats from Annapolis, Maryland, and I went down to with
Florida.
a group of the Battery Park Community Emergency Response Team, the CERT team,
Right.
and joined them with some Coast Guard auxiliary people. And we went down and we worked with the U.S. Army 82nd Airborne
Okay.
in downtown New Orleans for a month. And while we were there working with the 82nd Airborne, we had brought the boats to them.
Okay.
So that they could use it for operations because they needed more boats to rescue people. And the whole city was shut down because it had been flooded.
Yeah.
So we started rescuing animals. The Army and the Navy started taking animals because some people that were trapped would not leave without their dog or cat.
Yeah.
So
I still remember when I
yeah.
saw it on the news.
Yeah. So at first,
Yeah.
and when we first got there, the U.S. Army was really upset because there was a fight between the governor of Louisiana and the Bush administration, FEMA, who wanted to be in charge, but she wanted her National Guard to be in charge. So that delayed the 82nd Airborne by 36 hours.
Oh.
They were sitting on the tarmac with their PACs and C-130s
And they were
ready
not
to go,
allowed. Yeah.
and they didn't get the order because of this
Okay.
power struggle. So they were, I remember them griping about
Yeah.
that we could have saved a lot more people earlier.
course, yeah.
But once they started saving people, they realized that people would not leave unless
Because
their
of
dog
their
or
pets,
cat went.
yeah.
Yeah, they loved it. So they started rescuing. So we set up a little, we called it Camp Milo and Otis after the Milo and Otis Hollywood movie about the puppy and kitten Milo and
Yeah.
Otis. So we started taking care of animals and started having the shelter there. Once the shelter got full and more animals were coming, we took those animals in my truck to Baton Rouge, where the LSU Agricultural Center had a big stadium where they were keeping animals. And from there, I met people who actually couldn't get back into New Orleans, who'd left their dogs and cats in their house and were frantic to get them. So I had access. So me and one of my associates, with their legal permission and with the Louisiana Department of Animal Control permission, we went in and we would break into these sometimes gorgeous big houses and mansions, and sometimes in the lower Ninth Ward in the poor areas. Wow. And we would break into people's houses in the flooded areas, and we'd either find a cat or dog that didn't make it sometimes, but we also found that they're very resilient, especially the cats really do have 9 lives. So we'd find these dogs and cats, and we would rescue them and repatriate them with their owners, so they would, seeing families come back together like their children.
Absolutely.
So we got to do all that, and we worked at New Orleans. And I remember 2 weeks into the disaster deployment, another hurricane came. Hurricane Rita or Tina or something. Another hurricane came in, and everybody, including the National Guard, got out of the city because they thought it's going to be maybe another direct hit, and they'll just flood the place again. I was the only dum-dum who kept working and kept going through I had a big address list of all these people who had cats and dogs. So I kept rescuing cats and dogs, and I was there alone with my truck and saving all these cats and dogs. And the rain started coming, and when the water got up to the level of the tire, I thought I better get out of here. But for one day, I owned the city of New Orleans. There was nobody in the city of New Orleans.
And you were the
not
only
even
one.
the National Guard.
You with the cats and the dogs.
Me and the cats. It was like Omega Man. It was like being the last man on earth. It felt like that because you're in a whole city.
Oh my
and it's
God.
dead. It's empty.
What an experience.
Yeah, and I remember driving by a Church's Fried Chicken thinking, man, I'm so hungry. I could go for some chicken right now. And I looked in there and I saw the chicken, and I saw it was all moldy. It was just left there. And I thought, how sad of a sight is that? Here's all that chicken, all that Louisiana fried chicken, and I can't enjoy it. So, and there was no electricity, no nothing. So I would just dump a bottle of water over my head for a shower, right? And I got used to doing that in different disaster zones because there's never any electricity.
Of course.
And maybe you're lucky to have a generator somewhere, but running water is usually not available. So while I was in New Orleans, saving all these cats and dogs, it just, solidified more that I was on a track that I wanted to be on in life. People are hurting, animals are hurting. I know how to do something about it. And it's not like I liked disasters, and it's not like I liked suffering. It's that I felt a duty to it because I realized I was good at helping save some of these creatures and people and whatnot. And then also the doctors and the people who are trained to go into burning buildings, I didn't have that level of training. But what I learned at Ground Zero and in New Orleans is that these people who are highly trained, if they don't have somebody to look after their communications, their food, their tents, their blankets, their security, their transportation, all their logistics, their power, their communications, if they have to do it, then they get burned out easy or they get tired easy and they can't do what they're trained to do. They don't have. So I learned how important it is for the trained stars of the show, these doctors and these rescuers, that they have backup. So that was my role, backup and get them the things that they need so that they could save more people. Then the day that I left Hurricane Katrina was October 8th, 2005. After being at New Orleans for a month. I roll into town, into Maryland, after dropping off the truck to the emergency department, Maryland Department of Emergency Management, gave them back their truck, went home to my son, who was 16 years old at the time, Justin, sat down to a pizza. I hadn't been in the door 5 minutes. I thought, well, I've come from this disaster. I think I'm just going to chill out and relax for a while, maybe write some songs. Turn on the television. Earthquake in Pakistan is all over the news. So I looked at my son and I said, I'm going to Pakistan. Before I knew how I was getting there or who I was going with or anything about Pakistan, except for the bad news I'd hear on Fox News and CNN, That's the only thing I ever knew about Pakistan, is that that Osama bin Laden and his group are hiding behind every tree ready to, shoot you as soon as they see a white guy, or an American. So I'm sitting there on the couch, and I had this feeling that I needed to go. I felt this compulsion that I've just come from this one disaster. I'm ready to keep helping. I'm still in disaster mode. They're going to need disaster logistics help there.
That map that you saw in
Didn't hit me yet. I'll tell you when it hit me.
Okay.
Here's when it hit me. So I call the Pakistan embassy. I get on the phone with their deputy chief of mission, who tells me there's a group of doctors from Islamic Medical Association of North America and from the Association of Pakistani Physicians of North America, APNA and Imana, that they have a collaboration going to get doctors to Pakistan. He said that, let me give you their number.
Okay.
So I called them, and sure enough, they said, yeah, we need as much logistics help as possible because we're a group of doctors and we don't know exactly what we're getting to. We're going in.
Dr. Salman was in it too?
What's that?
Dr. Salman, I don't know if you... Dr. Salman.
Yes. There was so many doctors from America that I didn't know any Muslims. I didn't know any Pakistanis before that day.
Before that
Before that day, I didn't know any. I looked up on Google the number for the Pakistan embassy and just called out the blue.
Okay.
And from that moment on, I started getting to know Pakistanis. One of my best friends since that time, he worked for PIA at the time. He arranged our flights for the team. His name is Azhar Abbasi.
Okay.
And he lives in US now, very successful in the real estate business.
Okay.
Great guy, great friend, just like a brother.
Okay.
So that was my first Pakistani American friend.
Wow.
Then I got to know these doctors, and just within a couple of days after them saying, yes, we need a logistics person, I joined them, we planned the mission, we went to Pakistan, and we landed here in Islamabad. We landed at like 4 a.m. Aitzaz, who I didn't know at the time, but later on I was told, So this guy comes up to me, and he says, hello, Todd, we've been expecting you. I'm Aitzaz. And I said, oh, that's great. And I didn't know him.
Okay.
So I had no idea, right?
Okay.
Because I knew nothing about Pakistan, except for the bad news, right? And a little bit about Musharraf, because you'd hear his name from time to time. But very few things, So I get in the car with Aitzaz and one of my partners who came with me. One guy, I invited so many people from New Orleans to come with me. One guy came, an ex-Marine named Jim, and everybody else said, why are you going to Pakistan? You're going into the belly of the beast. Those kids, you're going to help them now, but then in 20 years, they're going to come and blow you up. They're going to come back and do the same thing as 9/11. Why are you helping there?
Oh.
And I said, I'll bet you that it's not like that. I'll bet you that I find great people. And I'll bet you that our government that lies to us about everything else has lied to us about this too. I just bet you that I'm going to find good people there. And they're saying, well, you're gambling with your life because you're going into the belly of the beast. I remember hearing stuff like that from a lot of people that I'd worked with at 9/11 in New Orleans.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm going to go anyway. And then, I'll get a chance to see firsthand with my own eyes that what are Pakistanis and what is Pakistan? And are they a bunch of terrorists? And am I going to get my throat cut and beheaded, on national television, like they were telling me was going to happen?
Of course.
So I get here and I meet Aitzaz and his wife Bushra. They treat us to a wonderful meal. As we're going from the airport to his house in F6, he's telling me he's a senator. He was once the interior minister.
Yeah, he was.
And he was telling me all these things. And so he was saying that he's in the government, and he was saying, here's the Supreme Court, here's the Prime Minister, here's the Parliament, here's all the things, as we were going to his house. And I said, oh, so if you're in the government, you and Musharraf must be really good friends. And I swear, he almost wrecked the car. He came over to the side, and he stopped. And he said, I hate him with a passion. And I said, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to stir up any trouble, right? He goes, I'd do anything to get rid of that guy. He's no good. Yeah. So anyway, we carry on.
But how he knew you?
Because the group of Pakistani American doctors that I was coming with were hooked up with him.
All right.
And they had a deal with him. I think one of them was good friends with him. And so every doctor that came in would stay at his house, and then the next morning fly out of Chaklala.
Okay.
And then when they came back from their deployment, they'd stay at his house and then get their flight out.
Okay.
So him and his team, they took care of everything on the way in and way out.
All right.
And so We go to his house. We have this, the first time I've ever had Pakistani food.
Okay.
And I was like, man,
This is good.
what have I missed for 39 years, right? I'm
Okay.
like, which is why I've gained a whole another 50 kg since that first time, you know,
Yeah.
because of not only Pakistani khana is amazing, mazadar and zabardast, but the people are so hospitable that even if you're not hungry, they won't allow you to not eat, right? Like you go somewhere and you have one plate and you're satisfied. Oh, you've not taken anything.
Yeah, it's
Right? Come on,
that's
you know?
a tradition.
Yeah.
You have to take,
And even
as
now,
much-
I'm a big guy, right? I'll go to a doctor's home, and the doctor will say, "Oh, Todd, you've got to lose weight. You know, don't have too much bread, too much rice, don't have sodas, don't even have these things." I'd say, "Yeah, you're right, sir." We'd go to his table, and all those things are there, and I'd say, "Doc Saab, you told me that, you know, not to have these things." He goes, "I meant for you to start tomorrow." Right? Enjoy tonight, but start tomorrow. But then every
Tomorrow
day
never
is
comes.
tomorrow never comes, right?
Yeah.
But it's been a beautiful way to go. If I'm going to get killed, getting killed with kindness, with the love of Pakistanis and their beautiful, amazing food, not just one or two items, but everything, right? Is just incredible. For an American Gora who's only had cheeseburgers and hot dogs and pizza, you come here and it's like, whoa, right? Amazing. So that began my love affair with Pakistan and its food. But it still hadn't hit me, right? How Pakistan, I was starting to get a sense that whatever I've heard in the media isn't quite all the truth, right? So we stay at Aitzaz Essence, and obviously he's a very high-level official,
Yeah.
and high-level person, and a very, very gentle man, a very nice person, and you know, he had a dignity about him, right? So that did tell me that there's something more to Pakistan. You know, I started meeting people like that. But this was just when I get here, right? So it still hadn't dawned on me. I'll tell you when it dawned on me. We go to Chaklala Airbase at 4 o'clock in the morning. At first light, we take off in the helicopter. We get all our stuff on and on supplies with some of our doctors.
Right.
Some of the doctors had reached the day before and were already there. We get there, we land in Gari Dupata on the Jhelum River in the middle of this destroyed boys' college, absolutely leveled to the ground, except for the cricket grounds where we landed. A young Pakistan Army lieutenant comes up to me. He goes, "May I take your bags, sir?" And I'm like, "Wait a second here." It's like a butler in England. Such a proper accent, you know, nothing like an American accent. You know, it's the British English.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, this young guy, and I'm like, wait a second here. I thought I'll have trouble speaking to people. This guy speaks better English than I do. So I knew, right then I knew that whatever Americans, regular guys like me, are told in the media about Pakistan, and the real Pakistan is totally different. So basically, Pakistanis have this thing that I have not seen anywhere else in the world. I've been to Japan for the tsunami, because after Pakistan, I also went to
To different places.
yeah, I've been to the Rohingya camps twice.
Okay.
Right after the disaster, refugee disaster in Myanmar. I've been to the Haiti earthquake, the Philippines, Typhoon Haiyan. I've been to the Japan tsunami and earthquake. Different places I've been, different countries. And then, of course, for fundraising, I've been to UK and I've been to a few other places. I've been to the Iraq, the Iraq-Kuwait border. I've been different places.
Okay.
And Pakistan is the only country that I've met where you got 230 million people, right? And so I tell people, when people ask me about Pakistan, I say, well, it's interesting. Pakistan is the only country I've ever been that has 230 million prime ministers.
Everybody's a prime minister here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean that in a good way. I mean that in a loving way, because what I see here is a lot of very confident, rugged individualism, and they know what's right, and they got it figured out.
Okay.
And the other guy they disagree with or they agree with, but they know what they're talking about. So, and that's why you see kids in the middle of Thar Desert come out of a tent in bleached white, beautiful clothes, and you find out they're a Microsoft Office expert. You see this kind of brilliance here. So you have individual brilliance, and people here are very intelligent. The problem is that in America, where we're not and this isn't to put Americans down, but they're not as intelligent. They're more simple, and they're more trusting.
Okay.
They're more trusting of what they see on TV
Yeah.
with their government. And so when you're more trusting, you can group together and work behind a leader. But when you are a leader yourself and you're individually brilliant, you might not work together as a team. The teamwork might not be there. So what I've seen in Pakistan is only because of teamwork, and it goes back to your question of what should Pakistan do, it should concentrate and practice a little bit more on teamwork and team building.
Okay.
And trusting each other and working that out, because they're so smart, they're too smart for their own good. that they don't, I was so shocked when I came to Pakistan. I was like, well, wait a second, there's like 10 major political parties. We only got 2 in America, and we think that's too much, right? We got like one third party, the Green Party or something, and they never even get on TV because the media just ignores them, right? But in Pakistan, not only do you have all these different parties, but you also fragmented, but you have all these different languages and all these different cultures within one country. And then I couldn't believe it. In America, we have ABC, NBC, CBS News, CNN. Now Al Jazeera is also there, and MSNBC and CNBC, right? You got that. Fox News, which I don't know if you call that news, right? I don't think you call any of them news anymore. With the advent of cable came, instead of just hard news or entertainment, it became infotainment. And that's where I think we went down the wrong track, where news became something other than just news, and it became too opinionated and too creating too much nonsense and what I would consider indoctrination in political stuff and that kind of thing. So in Pakistan, I noticed that I thought that's a lot of channels in America. But in Pakistan, I saw there was like 100 news channels.
Right. And
so what that tells me, along with my experience of being in Pakistan, is that people here could use teamwork in whatever way it can. When I see the army, I see teamwork.
Right.
When I see some of the corporations that do very well, I also see teamwork. Like, for instance, my friend Salim Gori and Netsol. He's another big believer in teamwork and a big believer in respecting his workers and taking their counsel and the way that he administrates and the way he runs his company is, I've told him so many times, you need to teach courses on how to build a team to kids and to young people.
I think it's more important than the books that need to help. Yeah,
because I'm not saying that nobody in Pakistan understands teamwork. The very successful people in the successful companies, they know teamwork. I'm talking about the people in the rural areas, the people that go to the government schools that only teach memorization.
Right.
They don't teach why or how. Absolutely. They just teach, memorize this and that's it.
Yeah.
The madrasas that turn out kids that know the Quran.
Kids.
They know the Quran in Arabic like the back of their hand. But when you ask them what does the words mean, they only know Urdu, so they don't know what the Arabic they recite actually means. So they don't even know their own religion as well as they should.
Them a lot,
Right? So kids here can memorize things. They're brilliant. They can figure out things. They're born engineers.
Yeah.
I mean, here are so many engineers and doctors, and whenever they go to the States, they become the most successful.
Absolutely.
They just tear it up. So what I see here is those who are successful at building teams here, they need to go out and teach the general public teamwork.
Okay.
And I actually think I'm not a big fan of the government of Israel. But there's one good thing that they do that I think Pakistan should do. Every kid, when they turn, 18, has to do 2 years of some kind of civil or military service.
They used to do it here.
I think that would be a good idea.
They used to.
If all the kids in Pakistan, were brought together for a couple of years of teamwork training, and you don't have to just be military. They could do work in the other areas of civics and development, but to serve their community. And I think that would be a great idea. But however it happens, I think that teamwork is a big thing that can take that individual brilliance and that talent and really make it go, multiply. It can expound exponentially the productivity of the nation if the individual brilliance and the teamwork could
brought
come together.
Okay, great, wonderful. I mean, that's a great idea, and that's probably the right route to overcome all these issues that we are facing.
When you're too busy fighting each other or arguing with each other or not thinking the other is, you can trust them, then you won't build anything from that.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much positivity that's gone down the drain. So after all that experiences and, the learnings and knowing the world and, understanding it, you are now in Pakistan doing a lot of things. What are your current focus areas?
Well, Comprehensive Disaster Response Services has concentrated over the years in disaster response, helping medical teams set up in the field, blankets, food, tents, that kind of thing, which we still do.
And how many people are there?
We have 100 employees now.
100 employees?
Yeah, we have 100 employees. And after we did a mission, after the earthquake and the 2010 floods and the 2009 crisis in SWAT, 2013 floods. In 2014-15, Imran Khan Foundation asked us to basically work for them, doing all their medical work in Bandu al-Aki Marvit for the disaster of North Waziristan IDP's crisis. So we worked with the army, we worked with the locals, and we worked under Imran Khan Foundation doing all their medical work. We took over Gorivala Basic Health Unit, and we ran that for 11 months, almost a year, before the Imran Khan Foundation wrapped up their mission, their disaster mission. After that, we looked around and said, we can use our logistics experience in disasters, because once you have done disaster logistics in non-disaster time is a piece of cake. It's easy, because in disasters, you need things. Everything changes in every minute, and you need everything. Everybody needs everything at the same time, and it's a real
lot of panic and
it's a disaster. So there's a lot of need and a lot of concentrated need and a lot of running around and a lot of everybody running around as quick as they can. So non-disaster time, what we did is we've applied our logistics capability and our disaster experience capability to look at gaps in the system. Where are there things in the system or in the country where we can be helpful? The first thing was water projects. There's a water problem. There's water shortage. We can do something about clean drinking water, and we can use our logistics. We can go anywhere in Pakistan. Our guys are tough enough to sleep on a charpai or on the ground at night, and go anywhere and live in cold environment, wherever. My employees, some of them are from Skurdu and Gilgit and Chitral. They can go to any mountain place and do their work. I have some employees in Thar Desert, and whether it's hot or not, they can work. And I go there too. I've gotten used to it, these extremes. So we can go there in less than 24 hours in any disaster. So what we've done is we've applied that to having now 700 water projects in the country. Some of them even reverse osmosis water filtration. Places like Badin and these areas where you need solar power and there's no electricity, and they have the earth has so much salt in it that the water it has to have reverse osmosis water filtration. So we have some of these kind of water plants. We do all types of water projects, and so then we saw that there's a lot of widows and orphans and single mothers. So we started House of Blessings for Widows and Orphans. We have one in Karachi, one in Pindi. We're getting ready to open one later this year in Lahore, and maybe one either in Muzaffarabad or Quetta, depending on what the donor wants to do. We have our school building and house building team. We're building houses right now with Mary Petroleum, in one of the most dangerous areas of Balochistan, where nobody's allowed to go unless you have a security permission. And then we also, with Mary Petroleum, we have a truck that goes around Islamabad, Pindi, and feeding poor people every day, 600 meals every day. Then we're building houses for one of the chapters of APNA in the Balochistan and Sindh area that were affected by the floods. We've been doing a big mission during COVID and then during the floods with APNA and a lot of its chapters. Their Social Welfare Disaster Relief Committee and many of their chapters have funded us, and we've done the work on the ground for them. Touchstone Communications here in They have next to the Marriott, their offices, and they are sponsor of our House of Blessings project. So we work with some different companies that help us. Abyss Solutions, a software company that has funded a lot of our flood work. And so we're working with really good organizations that need people that do good logistics on ground. So our disaster logistics and our toughness, our ability to go anywhere, has led to us being able to operate and fill gaps in the system. Wherever in society there is need, we can fill it. So 2.5 years ago, we got a big grant for animal welfare. And now we have in Gulberg Greens, Islamabad, the very first trap, neuter, vaccinate, release center in the country, which is trapping dogs and cats, mostly dogs. And we neuter them and spay them so you can't make more unwanted puppies. And we vaccinate them from rabies so that they're safe, the society. It's really about helping make society and children safer. It's only about the animals to the extent of, we love animals, but there's also a big problem that's a public health issue. It affects everybody. So what we try to tell people is whether you love or hate animals, you'll love us. Because with us, you see less animals being born and suffering, and we do it in the way that's Islamically permissible. Shooting and poisoning them is not, it's not only Islamically not permissible according to the words that I've read in the Quran, because I became Muslim in 2009, alhamdulillah, but it's also not scientifically effective or environmentally safe. The poison can get into the system, into the water, and poison us all. When you shoot a whole bunch of dogs in one area, well, then the dogs are empty in that area, but new dogs come in to claim that territory because there's dogs there. So within a couple months, it's the same problem, and they're even more aggressive because dogs are more aggressive when they're establishing their new territory. So they're more likely to bite people. So it's actually not the right way to do it.
Of course.
The right way to do it is what Turkey, our Muslim brothers and sisters in Turkey did. 20 years back, they did this TNVR, and now you see dogs, but you don't see so many of them. And the ones you see are very calm and docile. They're not, their hormones aren't running wild. You don't see a bunch of unwanted puppies running around, and you don't see the environment being dirtied by them or dogs barking all night long.
Of course.
They're well behaved because their hormones are settled down. So this is the answer. And I believe that if we do this, Allah will bless us more in ways that have nothing to do with animals. Because the reason I say that is because I think that we're being punished a little bit by not doing what we should be doing. Because God created wolves. Allah created wolves. But we took them and made dogs out of them. So then we abandoned them later, the ones that are abandoned on the street. They're still domesticated dogs. They're not wild bears and wolves and tigers. So we are in Allah's eye, according to the Quran, according to His own words, that take care of these of animals and be kind to them, and even being kind to a sparrow is a reward. So, and on the Day of Judgment, even the sheep will be able to speak against the bighorn sheep. You know, so the animals will have their day in court to tell what everybody's done. So while we're here on earth, abandoning these creatures that man domesticated and then turned loose and we hate them, they're dirty, they bark, they bite us, but they're only doing that because we've abandoned them. We haven't managed them properly. So if we do TNVR and we manage them right way, there'll be less suffering, there'll be less dog bite cases, less rabies, and Allah's blessings will come upon this country, and maybe some of these other problems we have will start getting fixed. Because when you have problems this size, run into problems of this size, then they become mega problems. And they have a life, they take on a life of their own. So you can look at one problem, but if you don't look at one problem in light of how it affects other problems and how they run into each other, then you'll never get to solving the problem. So it's about trying to make the problems smaller so they don't run into each other so much. So our theory is if we can get the people on board with TNVR, whether you love or hate dogs is not even a point, it's irrelevant. It's that we need to reduce the population in a way that Allah will be okay with. We have to reduce the population. So what is the way to do that that is actually permissible and goes along with the principles of Islam? And that's to trap, neuter, vaccinate, release. It certainly isn't, if you shoot a dog, okay, if it's vicious and it's coming at you or if it's got rabies, I can understand that. But that doesn't mean 100 other dogs that are all cowering and little puppies and mothers that are just trying to survive underfoot, and they try to avoid people because they're so scared of people mistreating them, and you shoot and poison them. I'm sorry. You've left Islam in terms of the what you're supposed to be, what the Quran says. So if we really want to be the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, then we should we should do things that
Of
way.
course. I mean,
And-
this is how you start understanding, loving a living being. That's very important. I mean, people.
Yeah,
should
and
have
dogs'
learned.
DNA is basically hardwired to love human beings. And the only reason they start biting or being harmful to people is because every day of their life they get a stone thrown at it, they get kicked,
Yeah.
they get mistreated. So if you throw a stone at me, I mean, if I were to throw a stone at you, you'll probably bite me. I mean, you'll do something to defend yourself, right?
Right.
So I think it's a big issue. I think it's bigger than people realize. I personally think that it's a direct line to Allah to take care of His creations that we're responsible for, especially those that we domesticated from
Yeah.
wolves. Because people don't realize it. When I tell people, they don't believe me at first. When I say Allah created wolves, but man created dogs out of them. Some of
That's
them
so
say
true.
that how's that possible?
They-
And I'm saying, well, because they bred them. They liked them to protect their cave
And they
back
changed.
in the day. They liked them, some of them for companions. Some of them were small, so they thought they were cute. Some of them were beautiful. Some of them were good at guarding and fighting. Some of them were good at hunting.
Yeah.
If dogs are so dirty and they're so bad that angels won't even come, then why in the Quran does it say that a dog can go hunt and fetch the prey in its mouth and bring it to the owner? The owner can cook it and eat it for his kids. That shows you that the saliva of the dog is not dirty. Maybe you don't want it you don't
The
want.
saliva of any animal could be dirty. I mean, if it's
Well,
rabies and stuff. Yeah.
Yes, the unfortunate thing about dogs is they don't have sweat glands, so they sweat through their mouths, so they drool. You don't want that in the masjid.
Right.
That's what that's all about. But it doesn't mean they're dirty animals. And if they're dirty, they're only because we've left them out on the street to be dirty. So the point that I'm trying to hammer, and I hope somebody out there will repeat this and learn from it and spread this message, that we are responsible for dogs. They're domesticated creatures. We've abandoned them. All of the ills in society that dogs are creating because of overpopulation are because we haven't done our part. So everybody should donate to people that are doing rescue and TNVR of stray dogs, so we can bring the population down. We have made history in a couple ways. We have the very first animal ambulance service nationally in the country,
Really?
with 2 ambulances in Pindi area, Islamabad, 2 in Karachi, 2 in Lahore, 1 in Charsada, Peshawar area, and it's growing. It's small, but growing.
Okay.
What we're doing is a drop in the bucket, but we're trying to set an example to show others. And then we have started the very first MOU with a government. The government of Skurdu signed a MOU with us to not kill dogs, to do TNVR instead. So that's the first domino to fall. Eventually, hopefully, we've
Yeah.
got Gilgit-Baltistan government is on board. Thankfully, the chief secretary is a very dear friend from back in the earthquake days.
Okay.
He worked for General Nadim and the earthquake, the Federal Relief Commission and
Yeah.
all that, and then ERA, Mohideen Vani Saab, great guy. So he and I are working on an MOU for all of GB, and we want to eventually sign an MOU with every district in Pakistan to don't kill dogs. Let's divert those funds instead of killing them to doing the TNVR. It'll be more effective, it'll be longer lasting,
Right.
and it will give us blessings.
Of course. Great. Ted, you have done so much, and I wish I had more time to listen to most of the things that are still there, and we don't, so I probably request you again.
Absolutely, but there is one last thing.
Sure.
Everybody tells me, oh, it's so great you've come to Pakistan and you're wonderful and Allah will bless you. But to be honest with you, Pakistan has given me 100 times more than whatever I've given. I have given a lot of myself. If the earthquake had happened in some other part of the world, perhaps I'd be there. But it was destiny. And here there's a lot of need. I like the country. I'm fascinated with the mountains. I love the Kana. I love the people. I adopted the religion for myself, which Allah knew in my whole life I would come to eventually.
Yeah.
But the thing is that when it comes to Pakistan, maybe Pakistanis themselves don't see it as much or realize it as much as somebody outsider, but it's a really, even with all its problems, it's a truly magical and mystical place with beautiful people. And Allah blessed me with a wife, Fozia, and now I have a 2 years and 3 months, Mohammed Sultan. So I have a 33-year-old son and a 2-year-old son.
Wow.
So 31 years between sons. And I'm just so blessed to have a Pakistani family. and a Pakistani CNIC card.
And I've
I have
seen
my
you,
POC card.
you're such a loving father. I mean, I've seen you, most of the time you post and stuff.
The kid is just
You
a beautiful little soul.
yeah. I still remember your comments once you had the COVID, that I think you couldn't meet him.
I couldn't touch him or my wife
And
or even
that's
hug them
probably-
or kiss them or I couldn't. I could do TV FaceTime.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't even be in the same room with them,
Oh.
and that really tore me up.
So Sultan is probably a very lucky kid to have a father like you. So as
I'm lucky to
just
have him and Fozia. I'm lucky to have a great team of workers in CDRS that are dedicated to the cause. Some of them work at our hospital. We have two a mother-child health center
Okay.
and a child health clinic. A child health clinic is in Kanya, SWAT with the Mother Child Health Center. Then we have our animal welfare people. We have our married truck people. We have our logistics team. We have our water team. So we have all these different teams, and they just do fantastic work. They're young people in Pakistan that really represent the greatness of this country,
Right.
and what has never lost me. I've never lost hope in where this country will go someday because I see these young people.
Absolutely, so right. So when we are listening to your concert, can we? Is there any possibility that you're going to have all those rock days, and so we can have something of the similar thing that you've told us about the Pink Floyd wall thing? Can you do it again?
That was a really big production. It could be done, but it took a lot of time in preparation to get that right in rehearsals and stuff. I don't have time for that anymore because I'm doing so much work and it's just
For sake of the youngsters, because they couldn't have that kind of experience. I mean, if you can do
maybe
it.
someday. I will say that I'm working on some musical stuff with Umair Jaswal.
Okay.
Umair Jaswal is obviously big with the youth and a great singer who's having a very successful career, but he's also our CDRS ambassador for water.
Oh, yes.
And he's helped us for many years. I've known him since, I think I met him in 2008.
Okay.
So it's been 13, 14 years, whatever. He's just a fine young man. He's not wrapped up in ego and fame and fortune. Yes, he's a successful musician and singer, but he's also a down-to-earth great guy. He comes from a great family.
Yeah.
He's just a wonderful young man. He's trained as a geologist. He's educated and just as nice as can be and down-to-earth as can be. The kind
That's
of
very
person you want, because a lot of stars, and it's not just in Pakistan, it's in America.
across the world, yeah.
Sometimes they let it go to their head a little bit.
Yeah.
But Umair's one of these guys that has stayed grounded even though he's successful. So he gets it when it comes to the kind of work that I'm doing, and he's involved in it, and so we may do. We are planning some concerts together.
Okay, great.
So there is some musical stuff in the future
Great.
for me
Wonderful.
in there somewhere.
Thank you so much for taking out the time. I understand your schedule is pretty tight, but even then, you have given us this amazing time, and you've shared so much. And I hope that the people who's going to listen to our podcast will probably learn a lot from it. Great inspiration. Thank you once again.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Abbas.